Yeah, it's now I'm getting like almost one megabyte per second, on 1,000 kilobytes a second. That's good. We had
Wonders
it
of
when
technology.
the pandemic started. We weren't here, right? So we didn't use it. We didn't pay for it for a long time. Oh no, it's not Gun in the I mean Gun in the Yama, not Foundation of All Good Qualities. That's what His Holiness quoted. Gun in the Yama. I think it's inside the Lama Tsongkhapa somewhere. Do one of you all have a copy of the, what is it? Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga? Handy on your computer? Or know where it is in the FPMT prayer book? Can you guys hear me? Strange. All right, let's just find it on the internet. Sure.
I have Lama Tsongkhapa copy in my phone. I can WhatsApp it to you if it helps in any way.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, here actually. Wait, I think I found it. I found it. I have it on my laptop. That's okay, Matt. I have it. Yeah. Oh, this is.
I'll WhatsApp it to you anyway.
Yeah. Do because this is a commentary. This is not the one I. Okay, here it is. Here it is.
Maya, I don't know if I'm allowed to do this, but it's good to see you again. It's been 4 years. I sat in the corner at Toshida with you 4 years ago, me and some other guys. It's so pleasure to see you.
Thank you. I'm happy that we have a student coming back again.
Well, I'm here all the time. I just don't always put my face up, and I've seen you since then. I just never said anything. That's all I have to say. Take care.
Thank you. Good to see you too.
Venerable, shall we start? Or should we
Yeah,
wait?
sure. Yeah, we can start.
Right here. Good evening or morning, everybody. Welcome back. Thank you so much for coming back to us. And thank you, Venerable Legtsok, for accepting kindly to do the renunciation continuously. Yeah, so please, all yours, Venerable.
Okay. Thank you, Kamala. And yeah, welcome
Thank
back,
you.
everyone. Okay. Oops. I'll come back to that. Yeah, let's set a positive motivation first before we start. Oh, wow. Kundan's there on the train. Anthony's in the jungle. Somewhere. All right, welcome everyone. Yeah, let's set a positive motivation briefly before we start. So think about all the kind mother sentient beings who benefit us so much from life to life. And especially, those in this life we can most easily relate to our kind mother and father, our immediate family, our extended family, our many, many friends, from childhood, early adulthood, now. Yeah. And then all the other, yeah. So first, friends and family, think of. And then think of those whom we find the most difficult to have concern for, have compassionate concern for. Those whom we're most prone to dislike or become angry with, or perhaps those who've harmed us. Think of them, imagine them in front of you, facing towards you. And remember how they're the same as us and wanting to have happiness and wanting to be free from suffering and being under the control of afflictive emotions, but also having the potential for full enlightenment. And try to generate loving kindness and compassion for them. And then think of all the other sentient beings in whatever kind of rebirth they existed now. Human beings, animals, hell beings, hungry ghosts, and devas, and so forth. And imagining them all in human form, seated together with us during this session. Then try to think, in order to benefit all of these sentient beings, including me, and in order to free them all from suffering, then I'll review the teachings by His Holiness the Dalai Lama this morning, in order that I may quickly become enlightened, to be of the greatest possible benefit in the world. Okay, great. So I've just uploaded a document with some of the quotations, actually quite a lot of the quotations that His Holiness. I can upload it again if some of you came late, because I haven't opened it yet on my computer. That His Holiness went through today. Yeah, I just uploaded it again. Yeah, so we'll go through some of those. Right at the beginning, His Holiness, well, the main teaching today that His Holiness gave was on the 17 scholars of Nalanda, which is it's a requesting prayer, like invoking the blessings, or requesting the blessings and inspiration of the 17 scholars of Nalanda. That was composed by His Holiness himself in 2001, only not so long ago. So that was the main thing His Holiness went through today. And he started by going through the colophon of the prayer first, because His Holiness gives some very pointed advice and explains why he composed that prayer in the colophon. And then he went through the actual prayer briefly, and then answered some questions. So before we go on, I want to let you all know I have a new internet connection today. I called up the Air Jaldi internet company and have them reconnect our expired kind of account, reactivated. So, and I installed a little like internet data like reader on my taskbar. So I'm getting 1,000 kilobytes per second now. So I think we'll be okay tonight with internet connection.
Thank you so much for the effort, Venerable.
Yeah. No, I have
Thank
to do it. I felt quite kind of a little shy yesterday. And I make the monastery look bad, no? What's a big monastery without a fast and stable internet connection? Anyway, okay. So let's go to, hold on, I have to open up this document first so I can share my screen with you. Let's see, I don't even know where it is. So first I'll show you His Holiness opened his talk with a quote by quoting one verse from the Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga, the verse on rejoicing, where we, in Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga, right? It's kind of a meditation on the 7-limb prayer, the 7-limb practice in relation to Lama Tsongkhapa. So Lama Tsongkhapa, as I mentioned yesterday, he's the founder of the Gelug tradition. And so among the Gelug students, they recite this kind of Guru Yoga, and it's like a prayer invoking, and along with meditation, invoking the blessings of Lama Tsongkhapa every day. And so one of the 7 limbs, there's the limb of, if I can remember, limb of homage and prostration, limb of offerings, limb of confession. And then I think the 4th is a limb of rejoicing. Then there's a limb of requesting teachings, requesting the Guru remain long, and dedication, 7. So this is the 4th verse. Well, it's not, it's the 4th of those 7 limbs. So this one here, I'll just blow my screen up a little bit larger. So from Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga, the limb of rejoicing, and it's here. You strove for much learning and practice. So this is, praising Lama Tsongkhapa. You strove for much learning and practice in this degenerate age, and made your freedoms and richnesses meaningful by abandoning the 8 worldly concerns. Savior, we sincerely rejoice in your extensive deeds. So you, of course, as Lama Tsongkhapa, you strove, means you made a lot of effort, right, for much learning and practice. So in Tibetan, actually, it's Toba Dandru. So Toba means learning, it means study, receiving teachings, reading different texts, discussing, all that goes into learning about something. At the initial level, right? Just kind of getting knowledge about something by reading and receiving teachings. And then the second is contemplating, right? So there's always hearing or learning, the 3, hearing, contemplating, and meditation, right? In Buddhism, these are the 3 main steps by which we progress from not knowing anything about something to having a complete experience of it, right? So first, we need to read and listen to explanations, hear what are different ways to explain about any topic, and then we have to integrate that further by thinking about it for ourselves, independently thinking about, contemplating, and checking to see whether it's true or not true, comparing it with our own experience, our own life experience, seeing whether it's is practicing what they're saying or not. Do other students, do they actually seem to be trying to put this into practice? Does it make sense? So contemplation. And then practice is the 3rd, meditation. When we meditate, what we find to be true, we want to not just leave it at the level of mere ideas and concepts at an intellectual level, but we need to try to integrate it into who we are, right? So for example, if we find that, we really feel like, well, to give them more about that, then we read books about how does sugar affect your health, right? And then if we see, there's really good arguments to stop consuming sugar because it really damages your health in a lot of ways, it's not good enough just to know about that and believe that that's true. We actually have to stop eating sugar, right, for it to benefit us at all. So that's like the meditation. You know, if we think that, oh, anger is something that's really destructive in my life, in my relationships, and we study and learn about it and come to the conclusion that, oh, it's possible to reduce my anger and increase my loving kindness. But it's not enough just to know about that and believe it's true. We actually have to try to practice that by, you know, trying to actually employ methods to be more patient and be more tolerant, be less angry, and be more, you know, kind. So we have to practice hearing, contemplation, and meditation. So that's what is this way of praising Tsongkhapa. You strove for much learning and practice, and this degenerate age. So the point His Holiness emphasized here was, it's not enough just to study and have an intellectual understanding of things. We have to put that into practice, otherwise it's meaningless, right? That was the main point he made here. And how do we do that? Put things into practice. First of all, we have to have a pure motivation. We have to check, why are we doing, you know, especially in the context of, in general, in everything we do, we should check our motivation. But especially, there's a big danger in the context of religious or spiritual practice. We can easily, you know, start, you know, wearing a mala around our wrists and maybe wearing like Tibetan clothes and, I don't know, wear some special kind of robes or shawls around and sit, you know, in public with a shawl wrapped around us and look like we're really some kind of spiritual practitioner. But there's a big danger for us that that the motivation is just worldly, meaning that our motivation is not really to become a better person in order to benefit others, or in order to at least gain you know, happy rebirth, or be free from samsara, or really use our life to benefit others. There's a big danger that we want fame. We want other people to recognize that we're doing something esoteric and special. Or we want to become kind of some kind of anomaly among our friends, you know, something more and more kind of mysterious than other people, or something like that. No, it can be for kind of praise, or other people to praise us and think, oh wow, you're such a serious practitioner, something like that. So all those things, probably we're not going to make much money by doing those things, right? But more like reputation and praise from others is a big danger in spiritual practice. So here, this praise of Tsongkhapa is that you made your freedoms and richnesses. That just means your precious human life, basically. All the opportunities which a fortunate human life endows you with, you made those meaningful by abandoning the 8 worldly concerns, right? So the 8 worldly concerns are, there's 4 sets of 2 each. So they're desiring praise and wanting to not be criticized, desiring fame and not wanting to be sort of obscure, not known, desiring to accumulate wealth and not wanting to lose wealth, and then desiring to have just mundane kind of sense pleasures of this life and not wanting to have the opposite kind of pain, physical, mostly physical, different kinds of physical pain or mental pain. So yeah, so His Holiness is saying we need to practice with a kind of motivation that transcends just this life, and especially that transcends our own self-interests, right? With the motivation to do something, accomplish something which is beneficial to all the world, all sentient beings. So that was the first thing His Holiness spoke about. And then, let me look at my notes here. And then His Holiness said, recounted the story about how Lama Tsongkhapa left when he was about 36 or so. Lama Tsongkhapa was becoming a very famous teacher in central Tibet. And at one point, he was teaching, giving a very extensive teaching over several weeks or a month or more to a really big audience of several hundred monks, which was kind of a big teaching event, like hadn't happened for a long time in Lhasa, in the area of Lhasa in central Tibet. And yeah, many people were saying, oh, there hasn't been a scholar and a practitioner like this person, Losang Drakpa, for a long time. So he was becoming very famous. And right in the middle of that teaching, Lama Tsongkhapa consulted Manjushri, the Buddha of wisdom, via a medium whose name was Umapa. Because at that time, Lama Tsongkhapa didn't have direct visions. Later in his life, he had direct visions of this deity, but at that time he didn't. So via this person who did have direct visions of Manjushri, Lama Tsongkhapa asked him about his own view of emptiness. What was his view of emptiness? Kind of, was it the highest view of the middle way consequentialist, or was it the view of the middle way autonomous school, or was it the view of the mind only school in next lower school, or what was it? And Manjushri told Lama Tsongkhapa, your view is not even a Buddhist view. It's none of those. It's not even a Buddhist view of emptiness. It's a completely wrong view, basically. And then Lama Tsongkhapa said, well, what do I need to do to get the correct view of emptiness? And Manjushri says, you need to go into strict retreat, into isolation and retreat. And then Lama Tsongkhapa says, actually Umapa, Lama Tsongkhapa didn't say, apparently Lama Umapa, the medium, he kind of complained to Manjushri saying, but he's a very famous teacher. He's giving these teachings to hundreds of people. If he just leaves and goes into retreat, what are those people going to think? And what's going to happen? Who's going to guide all those people? Who's going to teach them the Dharma? And Manjushri said, I know what's best for the Dharma. You just do what I said. Like that. And then so Tsongkhapa did. So he left in the middle of this teaching and went into an isolated place with a group of 8 close disciples, and then engaged in quite solitary and very ascetic kind of practices and retreat for the next 4 years. And at the end of that, then Lama Tsongkhapa actually, towards the end of that, Lama Tsongkhapa had a dream, one very vivid, special dream, in which appeared Nagarjuna and Buddha Palita and Bhavaviveka, Chandakirti, and maybe Atisha also. But in the dream, Buddha Palita had a text in his hand. He walked over to Tsongkhapa and touched him on the head, blessed him on the head with the text. And then the next morning, Lama Tsongkhapa he was reading, that text. It's a text about emptiness, about the middle way view. Lama Tsongkhapa opened that, and he was reading one of the verses. And in the midst of reading that verse and thinking about the meaning, he had his first conceptual, unmistaken realization of emptiness, of the correct view. It was a very powerful, moving experience. And then later that day, when he arose from that kind of experience, then he wrote this very famous praise to Shakyamuni Buddha called In Praise of Dependent Arising. Which His Holiness has given commentaries on in the past, this year actually. But it's a very commonly recited prayer. It's all about how the highest way to praise Shakyamuni Buddha is to praise him in terms of his teaching that all things are empty of existing from their own side, based on the reason that, or because they are interdependently arising phenomena, right? And that how that wisdom of interdependently arising phenomena is like at the essence of the Buddha, at the heart of Buddhist teachings. And here, okay, so I have to mention, because Kunpin wants to know about always. So I'll skip to my little cheat sheet here. So this is, His Holiness mentioned again the 4 consequences, which His Holiness mentions almost every talk. So these are, His Holiness mentions almost every talk, and almost every talk, what that he's giving online these days. And almost every talk His Holiness will quote, they're based on 4.5 verses from the text Entering the Middle Way by Chandakirti. And His Holiness will quote the verses and then recount how he recites these verses every morning while he's doing his morning kind of exercise, walking around in the garden early in the morning, and reflects on emptiness. on the basis of these verses and finds it extremely beneficial. So what is His Holiness saying to us? You should do that too, is essentially what he's saying. So you can, if you haven't already, you can download this document from the chat and start trying to do that. So I myself, I can say, I'm not to be bragging, but when I first, I've studied these verses before in the last 4 years, well, about 3 years ago. So at one point I did kind of, was giving a lot of attention to them. But what this year, when I heard His Holiness mention them, and I just, at first, when I went back and read them again, even I've already studied them, I really wasn't sure what they mean. They're quite difficult. But trying to follow His Holiness advice, I rememorized them because I memorized them earlier and then forgot them. So I rememorized them, and I've been reciting them every day in the midst of my own practice. And I can say every day you understand a little bit more, a little bit better. So I find quite helpful. So these verses explain what are called the 4 absurd consequences. Right. So the first absurd consequence is that an Arya's meditative absorption would be the cause for, would be the cause for destroying functioning things. And that's described here in this verse. If the intrinsic characteristic of things were to arise dependently, right? So if things had inherent existence, basically, and that arose dependently, then things would come to be destroyed by denying intrinsic characteristics. That's what it means. So emptiness would then be the cause for the destruction of things. But this is illogical. So no real entities means inherently existent entities exist. So yeah, you're probably already saying to yourself, like, yeah, this is difficult. It's true. Yeah, so basically, because he's putting together a juxtaposition of 2 things, which we ordinarily always hear are completely contradictory, right? So if you imagine something being both of those, then he's saying that would be ridiculous, basically. So the 2 things are something being inherently existent and also being a dependent arising, right? We always say that that's impossible for something to be both. Without explaining each line, right? Because we don't have time. And I'm hoping to maybe, make some time later in the year to just spend like a couple days going through these verses. Basically, so the first thing to remember is, because an Arya's meditative absorption, what does that mean? An Arya being is someone who has directly realized emptiness, means in a non-conceptual way, through, first conceptually realizing emptiness and then meditating on that again and again, single-pointedly, gradually, and by purifying their mind, accumulating merit, and familiarizing their mind again and again and again with this understanding of the emptiness of things existing from their own side. Gradually, that conceptual realization transforms into a non-conceptual realization, a direct realization. So at that point, it's called an Arya's, they become an Arya being, he's like a superior being. They become an Arya being and they have an Arya's meditative absorption. So what it means is an Arya's meditative absorption, it sees directly, just like we see the screen in front of us, or we hear the sounds, around us. We have no doubt in our mind that we can hear the sounds we hear. There's no doubt in our mind that, we feel the physical sensations we feel. It's something we directly perceive. So just like that, an Arya's meditative absorption sees directly, not with the eyes, but with the mental consciousness, sees directly that there are no inherently existent phenomena, or no phenomena existing from their own side whatsoever. That's completely impossible. It's just an illusion, that kind of appearance. There's no phenomena that exists by its own power. And because everything that exists appears to us as existing in that way, inherently. So it's very difficult to imagine what that realization is like, because everything appears to us in just exactly the opposite way. So in Arya's meditative absorption, that person, they're realizing that everything, the way it appears ordinarily, is completely false. Nothing exists in that way. And they see that as being true as clearly as we know it's true that, you know, there's a computer screen or a phone screen in front of us. So that Arya's absorption then, so if it were the case then that, because so what they see mainly is that nothing inherently exists. So if it were the case that all things that are dependent or dependently arising are inherently existent, then it becomes, so this is the difficult part, it would become the case that what an Arya is realizing is that nothing exists, actually, right? Because when Arya is meditative equipoise, it sees that nothing inherently exists. So if all functioning things actually are inherently existent, then it would mean what they're realizing is that nothing exists, that actually there is nothing. So then the realization of emptiness would be the cause, the third line here, the cause for the destruction of things, right? The cause, which means kind of the cause for the understanding, the true understanding that actually things don't exist. But that's totally illogical, right? Because things do exist. Otherwise, we can't have review sessions and we can't have teachings about Dalai Lama. So things do exist, right? Anyway, that's the first one. You see, so if I go through all four in that detail, then we'll have no time left. So I'll just skip to the second. The second observed consequence is that conventional truths would withstand analysis. So this means when we analyze to see if something is inherently existent or not, then if conventional phenomena are inherently existent, it means we should be able to find something that is inherently existent. This one's a little easier, right? You know, I mean, if you're familiar with analysis of emptiness at all, then you'll know, I don't have my mug with me today, but I have my second favorite prop, my watch. You'll know when you look for any phenomena, so where is the real watch? You know, this is obviously there's a watch here in my hand. This is not a fake watch, this is a real watch. I bought it in America. It's a Timex. I have to keep it in front of the screen. So what is actually the watch? There's a watch in my hand, right? You can see a watch on the screen. But you know, is this buckle? Is that the watch? No. Is the band, you know, either part of the band, are those the watch? No, it's just a band of a watch. If someone sells you two bands, you know, two watch bands and tells you this is a great watch, you're going to be like, don't take me for a fool, right? It's not a watch. Is just a face alone? Yeah, that's almost a watch, but even we can break it down further. Is the, you know, just the casing around, is that a watch? Obviously, no. Just the face alone, without the hands and the casing and without the battery, is that a watch? No. Just the parts inside the watch? No. So we can go through all the parts of the watch. None of those things are the watch. So then we just, okay, think we'll just take all the parts away. Well, then we have nothing to point to talk about a watch, right? So anything we analyze, so the final view is that actually there is no watch from the side of this object here, but rather we look at this collection of parts and the way it functions, and then we label, oh, one object upon this collection of many different disparate objects, right? This is not one unified object. This is a collection of many parts, you know, a buckle, the bands, the casing, the face, the hands, the cogs inside. They're each separate. They each have their own independent existence. You can take each of them out and they'll exist separate from all the other parts. So none of the individual parts are the watch. The whole collection of parts together is just a collection of parts. It's not one thing, right? It's a collection of parts. So, but yet when we look at this object, we see it as one thing, a watch, right? Legtsok's watch. So how does it exist? What is that one thing? That one thing is actually something we're labeling on that collection of parts. It appears as if this one thing, watch, back to us, as if it is just one unified thing from its own side. apart from our labeling watch on. So actually it doesn't exist like that at all. So what it means in this verse, again, is for it to withstand analysis, right? If something were analyzed and nothing is found as their nature apart from suchness, basically saying, things like the watch, and I mean, more importantly, is us as a person. We need to analyze what we are as a person. But if things really exist from their own side, when we search through all the parts, we should be able to find one whole, solid, real thing that we can point to and say, this is the watch, this part, or this is me, this part of me, this is the real me, essentially. But we can't find anything. So, therefore, everyday world objects, if we subject to thorough analysis, we'll just discover that they're not really there, right? So we don't analyze them, basically. In order to interact with them and function for them to function in a, or for us to speak about them and relate to them in a normal way, we do so without analyzing, right? When we analyze, we find that their ultimate nature, they're empty of inherent existence. Anyway, that's roughly the second one. Then the third absurd consequence is that ultimate production would not be refuted. So again, if things existed from their own side, then yeah, again, this requires way more explanation than I want to go into now. But basically, there would be inherently existent productions, causes and effects. And then the fourth absurd consequence, that all phenomena being, let's say, not established, can't read it. I have to minimize this Zoom window. The absurd consequence that all phenomena being not established by them would not be acceptable. There's too many negatives in there for me to understand. The absurd consequence that all phenomena being not established. What's this? Basically, what it's saying is that it would be unacceptable to assert that phenomena are produced and established by things that are empty of inherent existence, which is the case, actually. Anyway, again, I don't really want to go into it. If you have a question about it, we can go back to it, right? But there's only just explained the whole prayer praising the Nalanda scholars, right? So if we don't get to that, it's not so good. Anyway, so let's just briefly mention those. And then, all right, then His Holiness said that the Lamrim Chenmo, the great treatise on the stages of the path composed by Tsongkhapa, that is based upon the pith instruction lineage of the Kadampa Masters, but also is supplemented by many arguments and passages and descriptions from the great treatise lineage. So it's kind of a combination. There's, I think, 3 or 4 Kadampa lineages, but that's a combination of mainly those two, this pith instruction lineage and the great treatise lineage. So, and then His Holiness said, it's very important, even if we use, a short Lamrim text, like the Path to Bliss or the Swift Path, which are translated in English, I think. If we use a text like that as the basis for our practice, it's very important that our understanding be supported by more extensive studies of the 5 great treatises, like of the Middle Way, of the Perfections, Abhisamaya Alamkara, of extensive studies, if we can, of Vinaya, but for lay people it would mean of kind of morality, different aspects of the Buddhist moral code kind of thing, and then of the Buddhist kind of Abhidharma, which is roughly like phenomenology, cosmology, and pramana, especially valid cognition, reason. And then, so then this quote I want to show you, because His Holiness quotes every teaching, and he quoted today, spoke quite a lot about today, is these 2 verses from the 400 stanzas by Aryadeva. So there are these 2. Just as the body sense power pervades the body, ignorance is present in all afflictive emotions. So this is something that's really important. These two lines. I don't know if you can see. Can you see when I highlight here? I wonder. But you know, because this is something we can check with our own experience. So how do we check? First of all, we have to identify the kind of ignorance. Just as the body sense power pervades the body, ignorance is present in all afflictive emotions. So think what is this analogy saying? Think about your body. What is our body sense power? Our body sense power in modern neuroscience terms, it's kind of like there's nerve endings all over our body. So you think any part of your body that you touch, you know, whether it's your legs or your stomach or your neck, your hands, you get a sensation, right? If you don't, there's something wrong, right? So why do we have sensation on any part of our body? So it's because, I mean, in Buddhist philosophy terms, there's this thing, the body sense power. It means there's like a subtle physical, I don't know, receptors in a way, a sort of subtle physical, I mean, well, like in the ear, in the eyes, it's the eye sense power, which enables us to experience visual objects, right? So in modern terms, we can think like the cones and the rods in the eye, in the eyeball. It's like the subtle physical stuff in the physical eye that enables us to, to see physical things when there's light, right? Visual things, visual objects. So the body sense power, it means it's like the subtle physical, I don't know, energy or substance that pervades all the surface of our body. So that, and again, we can think of it in kind of like neuroreceptors in the skin, so that wherever we touch on our body, we can generate sensation. So just think about that, how this thing, the physical sense power, how it pervades all the surface of our body. So it's also in the eyes, it's also in the ears. Like the eye sense power, it's only in the eyes, right? The ear sense power is only in the ears. Can you hear sounds with your toes? Like, no, right? Can you smell things, can you taste food with your, your hands? If I just touch food and I can taste it, is that possible? No, like we can't taste food with our hands. We can feel the texture, but we don't know if it's like, can you dip your finger in liquid and see if it's, bitter or salty or sweet? No, but so we taste food with our tongues because we have the tongue sense power in our tongues, which enables us to experience flavors. But also we can feel textures with our tongues, right? Which means there's a body sense power in our tongues, right? So every surface area of our body is pervaded by the body sense power. So that's the analogy, right? So then what is the actual meaning here is that imagine all the different parts of your body are like different afflictive emotions. Like my right hand is anger, my left hand is attachment, my head is arrogance, and my bum is just stupidity, right? It's a pretty good way to match it up. Or something, I don't know. So imagine all the different parts of your body are different afflictive emotions. And then the body sense power, which pervades all those parts of our body, is what? Ignorance. Ignorance, but what kind of ignorance? Ignorance grasping at an inherently existent I. So what does inherently existent mean? Existing from its own side. So back to my watch, when we have the sense that there's a real watch there somewhere, is that. So we have to check in our own experience. Do you have a sense that there's a real I here, which is not my body, not any parts of my body. It's not any of my thoughts. It's the one who thinks such cool thoughts and has such a great looking body or something, There is a sense, it's very clearly, when you look, there is a sense of like a real I. And I mean, a really easy way to see it is think about a time you were insulted by someone. That real sense of I jumps up very strongly, very forcefully at that point. Or, when you're longing for someone, or, you really want something badly. Who is it that wants? There's a sense that I need that, I want that. So in many different situations, we can see that there is a sense of I. So that is the ignorance, grasping at inherently existent I. And that is the one that is being compared to the body sense power. So our job, it's easy to see that our body sense power pervades all the parts of the body. It's not easy to see how that strong sense of I pervades all of the different kinds of afflictive emotions that we have. So that's what we need to check, right? When we get angry, is there a strong sense of I? I don't like that. Why did you do that? You know, when we're attached to something, is there this kind of unrealistic sense of truly existent I from its own side? When we are, worried about something, think of any afflictive emotion that you have. And so it's helpful, it's best if you can think while you have it, but usually we can't. We can just think a little bit afterwards in retrospect. But think about, is there that strongly inherently existent I? Are we grasping at that whenever any afflictive emotion arises? Yeah, so that's what we need to check if that's true or not. So just go back to Aryadeva. So he's saying, just as the body sense power pervades the body, ignorance is present in all afflictive emotions. So that's something we can check in our own experience. By overcoming ignorance, therefore, you will also overcome all the afflictive emotions. Right? So here he's saying, he's just asserting again, like the most important teaching that the Buddha gave. All of our afflictive emotions, and thereby all of our mental turmoil, thereby all of the turmoil in our lives, including rebirth itself, from which our death naturally arises, all arises from this wrong concept, ignorance grasping at inherent resistance. And that's why it's possible to completely eliminate all suffering, right? Up to death itself. So therefore, because all the afflictive emotions, the very root of them all is this ignorance. By overcoming this ignorance, you will also overcome all the afflictive emotions. And then so how do you overcome this ignorance? When dependent arising is seen, ignorance will not occur. So this is another thing we can check. So we have to check in our experience. When we think, if we do this kind of analysis, that I did in the watch, look, it seems like there's a whole watch there, but it's something that's dependent upon parts. Analyze, check through all the parts. Is that the watch? Is that the watch? Is that the watch? Is that the watch? No, 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 no. At the end, it seems like the watch that appeared to be there, it's not there anymore. It's totally like, it doesn't appear. So the watch is not so important. We are important. We need to do that in relation to ourselves. When we have a strong sense, or when we can recollect, when we have a strong sense, when we've had in the past, a strong sense of grasping an inherent resistant I, how dare you accuse me of that? How could you treat me like that? Who is that I? That me? Where is it? We first, anyway, we do the analysis where we first look how it ordinarily appears, and then check where, if that one really exists in the way it appears. Then as we look more closely to find it, we should be able to home in on one thing and find this one thing, which is that. But what happens in actuality when we analyze is the very opposite. We look, and we can't find anything. That is that thing. And yet we know, completely apart from our body and mind, there's nothing we can point to say that is I. So the only logical conclusion is that I actually doesn't exist. It's not that there is no person, there is a person, but the way we seem to exist, especially as we appear to exist in the presence of afflictive emotions, that kind of I is Hi, I'm back. Can you hear me? Okay. That's my teaching for bragging about my new internet connection today. So I switched to my mobile phone hotspot now. I don't know what happened. This connection suddenly just went from like 1,000 bytes a second to 0, and it's staying there. So yeah, I don't know. I hope that'll change. I have no idea what. Anyway, okay. So we were, yeah. So anyway, it's really important to practice meditating on dependent arising, looking at all different kinds of dependent arising, how things exist in dependence upon different parts, how things exist through the force of their causes producing them, and especially how things exist in dependence upon mental imputation, how we label this is a computer upon a whole collection of parts, none of which are the computer, and therefore it exists, right? Like that. So back to my mobile phone hotspot is doing good. The other one is just totally bombed. I don't know. Anyway, I'll just leave it alone for now. Alain, all right, we're almost through the first hour and we haven't even touched the 17 Nalanda scholars. So why don't we look at that? So if you don't have a copy of the Nalanda scholars, you might want to download it from Tushida's site. And I haven't opened it here on my computer, so let me just open it. Then I can share my screen with you. Roll it up a little bit. And we go straight to the colophon. So just to, in case you guys don't have the text from today, the 17 Nalanda scholars, and the text for tomorrow, 3 principal aspects of the path, they're both on the Tushida website and the resource folder, which has just been pasted in the path. A link has just been pasted in the chat again. And it's good to, today His Holiness gave the full transmission of this prayer that he composed to 17 Nalanda scholars. So you all, I mean, if you attended the teaching online this morning, live, then you all have received that transmission. So it's good, those things, you make a note of it, keep a list, keep some kind of record where you just make a note of the date, the Lama you received it from, the place, and the teaching. Because it's kind of like, yeah, you've received the blessing of that prayer now. So it's good to, yeah, just to make a note of those things. Yeah. And I mean, one reason is so that you can rejoice in the future. Years from now, you can think about, oh, in 2021 during the pandemic, I remember His Holiness was teaching so many online things, but what did he teach? I don't remember. And then you can look back at your notes and remember, oh yeah, His Holiness, gave us the transmission of the 17 Pandits of Nalanda. That was so cool, right? But then I went to this review session and it was just like a wreck. I don't know what that guy was doing. All right. So let's look at the 17, the praise to the 17 Pandits of Nalanda here. So this is the colophon. There's 25 verses. This follows the 25th verse, the colophon. So this is what His Holiness explained first. There's just 1 or 2 points here that His Holiness made. Thus, the foremost sages of the noble land of India, as mentioned above, have composed numerous excellent, meaningful treatises that grant insight to those who think critically about the profound and the vast teachings of the fully enlightened, supreme, supramundane victor, the Buddha. So remember, this is His Holiness composed this, right? To this day, even after nearly 2,500 years have passed, those treatises survive intact for us to study, contemplate, and meditate. Remember, there's that threefold way of learning that I went over. Therefore, I am grateful to those masters who were the cream of sages and aspire to follow them in my practice with unflinching faith. So I'm grateful to those masters like Nagarjuna, Chandrakirti, these 17 scholars in Nalanda, and I aspire to follow them in my practice and with unflinching faith. So remember, His Holiness is going to describe below how unflinching faith is faith that's based upon reason and logic and learning and experience. Right? At the present time, when the world has made great progress in the fields of science and technology, so it's kind of alluding to external development, material development. We are distracted and preoccupied by the hustle and bustle of our lives. It is extremely important that followers of the Buddha should have faith based on an understanding of what he taught, of what the Buddha taught, right? So we shouldn't just believe the Buddha, have faith in the Buddha because our parents did, or because, he just looks cool, or we feel good when we look at a statue of the Buddha. We should have faith based on an on an understanding of what the Buddha taught. So to understand what the Buddha taught, we have to read the sutras and commentaries on and then receive explanation. Therefore, in analyzing his teachings closely with an unbiased and inquisitive mind, seeking the reasons that underlie them, and developing faith supported by an understanding of those reasons, these excellent texts concerning the profound and the vast by such renowned masters as the 6 ornaments and the 2 supremes, as well as Buddha Palita, Arya Vimukta, and so forth, are indispensable, right? So we should be unbiased, means we shouldn't just, strive towards arriving at a foregone conclusion. When we analyze to see what the Buddha taught, whether it's true or not, we should be open to the possibility that we're going to come to the conclusion that it's not true. Otherwise, it's not really authentic analysis, right? So we should be inquisitive and unbiased and seek the reasons, that the Buddha made Buddhist masters make different assertions, right? Okay, so His Holiness says, with this in mind, I commissioned a new Thangka painting depicting the 17 scholar adepts of Nalanda. I added 9 other masters of the vast and profound lineages to those portrayed in the traditional painting of the 6 ornaments and the 2 supremes. The 2 supremes, I think, are Nagarjuna and Asanga. The 6 ornaments, I'm not sure who it is. I'm thinking it's probably, because he mentioned that it's not Buddha Palita. So yeah, I'm not sure the 6 ornaments are. It's probably like Shantideva, Chandrakirti, Vasubandhu, but I'm not sure who the other ones are. Sorry. All right. Consequently, I was moved to, so His Holiness commissioned this Thangka painting of the 17 scholars of Nalanda, and he says, consequently, I was moved to compose an invocation with wholehearted respect for these supreme sages, and some of my aspiring Dharma friends encouraged me. His Holiness said it was Troshik Rinpoche, this Nyingma Lama, who's one of His Holiness teachers, who's passed away now. His reincarnation was just identified about 4 or 5 years ago. But he was the head of the Nyingma tradition for quite some years, Troshik Rinpoche. He said, His Holiness said it was him who encouraged him. This is how it came about that I, the Shakya Bhikshu, Tenzin Gyatso, who am in the back row of those studying the works of the sages, have composed this text illuminating the threefold faith in an invocation of the 17 great and renowned sages of Nalanda, having developed unfeigned conviction in the superb works of these sublime masters. It was completed at Tekchin Choling, Dharamsala, Kangra district, Himachal Pradesh, India, on the first day of the 11th month of the Iron Snake year, the 17th Tibetan Rajung 60-year cycle, corresponding to 15th of December 2001, of the Western calendar. 2,545 years, according to the Theravada system, after the Buddha passed away. May peace prevail. Yeah, so that's the colophon. And then His Holiness went to the beginning and read down. So usually when His Holiness talks about, the meaning of a 21st century Buddhist, as he was asked yesterday, that essentially the meaning is given in the colophon. 21st century Buddhist is someone who doesn't believe and have faith in the Buddha blindly or for no reasons, and doesn't just not understand what the Buddha taught, but someone who has a sound understanding of what the Buddha taught. First of all, what is the Buddha? The three jewels of refuge. What is the Buddha? What is the Dharma? What is the Sangha? To understand that, we need to understand the Four Noble Truths. What's the truth of suffering? The truth of the origin of suffering, the things to be abandoned, and then the truth of cessation and the truth of the path leading to cessation, the things to be accomplished. We need to have a basic understanding of what those are. To understand those, we need to understand the two truths. The ultimate truth being that all phenomena are empty of existing from their own side, and how within that conventional phenomena like watches and computers and people and emotions, our mind, how those things are possible. How can conventional phenomena exist despite being empty of existing from their own side? How is that possible? So we need to understand conventional truth and ultimate truth. And as Holiness says, for people with a modern education and a kind of modern skeptical outlook on life and the world, and an unbiased mind and some power of reason and comprehension, intellect. For that kind of person, it's better to introduce the Buddha's teachings by beginning with the two truths, then progressing to the Four Noble Truths, then progressing to explanation of what the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha are. So to lead a person that way, rather than just by talking about first the precious human life, and then inevitability of death, and then suffering of the lower realms, and so forth. Okay, so now we'll just read quickly through the prayer without explanation, and then I'll open the floor to you all to ask questions. Okay. Illuminating the threefold faith, an invocation of the 17 great scholar adepts of glorious Nalanda. Lord of Lords, arisen from the compassionate wish to benefit wandering beings, you have attained sublime protection, abandonment, and realization, and liberate sentient beings through teaching dependent arising. I bow to you, conqueror, son among the teachings. So first we prostrate as a prostration to Shakyamuni Buddha. Yeah. Then I call to mind esteemed Nagarjuna. So first is a praise to all the lamas or the pundits of the profound view lineage, right? So those who clarified the Buddhist teaching on shunyata, emptiness. I call to mind esteemed Nagarjuna, who, as the conqueror prophesied, introduced the middle way of the supreme vehicle and was skilled in clarifying the meaning of suchness, free of extremes, as intended in the mother of the conquerors. So that's the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras, through the profound logical presentation of dependent arising. I call to mind the Bodhisattva Aryadeva, Nagarjuna's direct disciple, his spiritual son, so Nagarjuna's spiritual son, the most learned and accomplished, who traversed the ocean of Buddhist and other philosophies, who is the glorious crowning jewel among all the holders of Nagarjuna's treaties. I call to mind esteemed Buddha Palita, who clarified the ultimate meaning of dependent arising. Remember, he's the one in Tsongkhapa's dream just before he realized emptiness, Buddha Palita. I call to mind esteemed Buddha Palita, who clarified the ultimate meaning of dependent arising. The thought of the superior Nagarjuna, essential point of the profound, existence as mere designation and name. The watch is merely imputed upon its parts. That's how it exists. Nothing more concrete than that. Essential point of the profound, existence as mere designation and name, and has ascended to the utmost state of accomplishment. I call to mind Acharya Bhaviviveka, erudite master, who introduced a philosophical view that refuted such extremes as truly existent production, who accepting commonly verified knowledge and external objects. So Bhaviviveka's view is slightly mistaken. It's refuted by Chandrakirti. I call to mind Chandrakirti, who promulgated the complete path of Sutra and Tantra. There's many commentaries by Chandrakirti on the view of emptiness, Sutra, but there's also many profound commentaries by Chandrakirti on Tantra. So he's a master of both Sutra and Tantra, who was skilled in expounding the profound and vast middle way, in which appearances and emptiness eliminate the two extremes through dependent arising and the merely conditional nature of things. Again, the merely conditional nature means how things exist merely in dependence upon parts, causes, and conditions, and especially mental imputation. Then 7, I call to mind the Bodhisattva Shantideva. So, usually we think of Shantideva as being, this master of bodhicitta, who wrote this incredibly inspiring text about, the importance of compassion and patience, kindness, and, the whole method side of the path. But Shantideva is also a master of the profound lineage. The 9th chapter of entering the Bodhisattva's way of life is, a profound instruction on emptiness. So he's counted as, among this lineage of masters of the profound view lineage. I call to mind the Bodhisattva Shantideva, skilled in teaching a host of fortunate disciples the truly marvelous path of great compassion through versatile means of reasoning, profound and vast. So profound and vast always refers to emptiness. Profound always refers to emptiness. Vast refers to the method side of the path, emphasizing, pure morality, generosity, bodhicitta, and so forth. And then the first I was speaking about yesterday, the first abbot, the first great Indian master to come to Tibet to teach, who's a master of logic. I call to mind the great abbot Shantarakshita, who introduced the non-dual middle way to suit disciples' mental dispositions, was well versed in differentiating the reasonings of the middle way and valid cognition, and disseminated the teaching of the conqueror in the land of snows. I call to mind his direct disciple, who also came to Tibet, it's believed. I call to mind esteemed Kamalashila, who wrote the stages of meditation. There's 3 different stages of meditation treaties by Kamalashila. I call to mind esteemed Kamalashila, who thoroughly explained the stages of meditation on the middle way view, free from extremes, and the union of calm abiding and special insight. According to the sutras and tantras, he flawlessly clarified the conqueror's doctrine in the land of snows. 10, I call to mind esteemed, so from Asanga, right, he's the of the 2 ornaments, he's the second one. We start, so this is the lineage of the vast deeds lineage, which emphasizes more the method side of the path, pure morality, bodhicitta, compassion, generosity, and so forth. More extensively teaches those things. I call to mind esteemed Asanga, who Maitreya Buddha inspired and looked after, who was adept in disseminating all the Mahayana discourses and revealed the vast path, and, as the conqueror prophesied, blazed the trail of the mind-only school view. I call to mind esteemed Acharya Vasubandhu, Asanga's half-brother, who, by maintaining the system of the 7 treaties of Abhidharma and the non-duality of mind-only, clarified the philosophies of Vaibhashika, Sautantrika, and Vijnavada. Vijnavada is another term for mind-only school. Foremost sage, renowned as the second omniscient one. So Vasubandhu is the author of the main treatise we use to study Abhidharma. Right? And then 12, I call to mind esteemed Dignaga. So Dignaga, historically the first of the 2 great, Dignaga and below Dharmakirti, the 2 greatest Buddhist logicians. I call to mind esteemed Dignaga, the logician who gave us the discerning insight of fine discrimination, by thoroughly opening 100 doors of logic to reveal the system of the Buddhist scriptures through empirical reasoning. I call to mind esteemed Dharmakirti, who fathomed the vital points of the Buddhist and non-Buddhist modes of logic, granted conviction in the vast and profound paths of Satantrika and Chittamatra through reasoning, and was adept in expounding the marvelous ways of Dharma. I call to mind esteemed Vimuktasena, who interpreted the perfection of wisdom sutras that came from the Asanga brothers, means Asanga and Vasubandhu, in accordance with the middle way, free from the extremes of existence and non-existence, and who lit the lamp, illuminating the meaning of the ornament of clear realization. 15, I call to mind esteemed Haribhadra, who clarified the three mothers. So that means the extensive, middling, and concise perfection of wisdom sutras, the three mothers, because they're the mothers of all the Buddhas, who clarified the three mothers, supreme perfection of wisdom scriptures, in line with Maitreya's fifth instructions, and who the conqueror prophesied would expound the meaning of the mother. So it's Haribhadra's commentary on the Abhisamaya Alamkara, the ornament of clear realization, is the main Indian commentary that we use to study the method aspect of the path in the three seats. I call to mind esteemed Gunaprabha, excelling in stability and learning, who integrated the intentions of 100,000 categories of Vinaya in accordance with Mulla Savasta Varda. That's the one lineage of Vinaya that is predominant in the Tibetan kind of Buddhism. That's what all the Tibetan monks and nuns kind of have, that lineage of Vinaya. Thoroughly and unmistakably explained individual liberation. So the main commentary on the Vinaya Sutras that we use is by Gunaprabha, that we study. I call to mind esteemed Shatyaprabha, ideal Vinaya holder, master of the three treasure of the three trainings qualities, who, in order to ensure the longevity of the flawless Vinaya teaching, thoroughly explained what the vast scriptures meant. I call to mind Jo Atisha, right? So all the two lineages of the vast and the profound, they come together in Atisha, right? And then from Atisha come to Tsongkhapa. I call to mind Jo Atisha, kind Lord, who caused the sage's teaching to flourish in the land of snows, who expounded doctrines vast and profound. So vast and profound, those two lineages, they come together in Atisha, who expounded doctrines vast and profound, complete teachings of the conqueror in the context of the paths of the person of three capacities. So this is the Lam Rim. The path of the person of three capacities is talking about the Lam Rim. There's the Lam Rim is divided into the three scopes. The scope for the person of small capacity, middling capacity, and great capacity, according to the vastness of their aspiration, their motivation. And right, of course, Atisha came to Tibet, taught for something like 13 or 17 years in Tibet, and passed away there. Making such invocations with an unflinchingly pure mind, to you exceedingly fine sages, ornaments for the world, and sources of stupendous, elegant teachings, inspire me to ripen my mind so that I may achieve liberation through understanding the meaning of the two truths, the ground reality of how things are. I ascertain by way of the four truths just how beings arrive in and leave cyclic existence. Thus, valid cognition engenders a firm faith in the three jewels. Inspire me to be enduringly grounded in the path of liberation. So this is a really important verse. Remember what I was explaining before? How His Holiness said, we should people with a modern education and outlook on the world, critical outlook on the world, how they should be guided in learning about Buddhist teachings. First, thoroughly understand the meaning of the two truths, conventional truth and ultimate truth, because that's the ground of the reality of how things are, and totally accords with quantum physics. Second, ascertain by way of the four truths, the Four Noble Truths. It's called truth of the suffering, truth of the origin of suffering, truth of the cessation, truth of the path. Just how sentient beings how we arrive in, I mean, how do we take rebirth in samsara, in this suffering state? And how can we leave cyclic existence? Cyclic existence is samsara, right? Then, so basically it's by misunderstanding the reality of how things are. The ignorance grasping at true existence is a misunderstanding of the reality of how things are. So by misunderstanding the reality of how things are, we create the causes of suffering, and we experience the truth of suffering, the first two noble truths. By correcting that, by generating a correct wisdom, understanding how things actually do exist, then we eliminate suffering and the causes of suffering, and we achieve the cessation of suffering, and we progress on the path to that cessation, right? So it's by by misunderstanding the two truths, we're kind of plagued by the first of the Four Noble Truths. By correctly understanding the two truths, we achieve the second, the third and fourth of the Four Noble Truths. All right, and thereby, by understanding this, thus valid cognition engenders a firm faith in the three jewels. So by understanding this, and the person who taught this is who? The Buddha. So by understanding, and then, so by first understanding the Dharma, we have faith in the Dharma as a valid refuge. Then we generate, independent upon that, we have faith in the person who taught that, the Buddha. What incredible teaching he gave. And then we generate faith in the other, the learned followers, means actually the Arya beings, the people who've generated realization of the Buddha's teachings, the Arya Sangha, the Sangha. We get faith, we generate, faith in them based on valid cognition. So inspire me to be enduringly grounded in the path to liberation. Then inspire me to master renunciation, the mind intent on liberation, total pacification of suffering and its causes, and the uncontrived altruistic awakening mind, rooted in compassion. So bodhicitta, rooted in compassion, the boundless yearning to protect wandering beings. Inspire me to gain conviction with effortless ease in the profound points of all paths of the perfection vehicle and the Vajrayana, by listening to, contemplating, and meditating on, there it is again, listening to, contemplating, and meditating on, I'll highlight it, on the meaning of the commentaries of the great pioneers. May I, in successive births, perfectly obtain a human life endowed with the three trainings. This is a training in pure morality, training in concentration, and training in wisdom. And serve the doctrine as the great pioneers did. So His Holiness is totally doing that. By safeguarding and promoting scriptures and insights through explanation and practice. May all Sangha communities be strengthened by noble, learned practitioners who devote their time to hearing, contemplation, and teaching. There it is again, hearing, contemplation, and meditation. Hearing, contemplation, teaching, and practice, and have totally given up wrong livelihood. May this whole wide world be forever adorned with such beings. Wrong livelihood here, especially in the context of Dharma and Sangha communities, means, did I speak to you guys about it before? I did. When I did a course, what is it, a 2-day course for Tushita a little while ago. And we went through, during the Days of Miracles, we went through the 3rd chapter of the King of Samadhi Sutra. In that chapter, it was talking about, how many people who propound, who are, ordained Sangha even, who propound to be Dharma teachers, actually, they have no experience of what they taught. Just like a salesman who goes around making a living by praising the qualities of sandalwood, but has never actually smelled it at all, or doesn't have any. So that's kind of a wrong livelihood in a way. So we have to be really careful, especially if we propound that we possess qualities which we actually don't. Anyway, that's not, for you all, it probably doesn't apply so much in terms of you'll do that, but it's more like we need to be careful who we're following, right? And people who put themselves forward as a teacher, and careful who we follow and how we follow them. Don't get kind of, taken advantage of. May this whole wide world be forever adorned with such beings. So, right, with beings who actually, they actually practice what they teach. Due to these invocations, traversing all grounds and paths of sutras and tantras, and quickly achieving the state, due to these invocations, traversing all grounds and paths of sutras and tantras, and quickly achieving the state of an omniscient conqueror, a Buddha, that spontaneously fulfills the two purposes. Two purposes always means the purpose of self and others. May I work, or the purpose of, it can also mean the purpose of making offerings to all the Buddhas and freeing all sentient beings from suffering and endowing them with perfect happiness. So it can also mean that. As long as space endures. So that, remember that prayer His Holiness always makes, for as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. He alludes to that in the last line. Okay. Thank you all. I'll stop there. And now if you have any questions, I will try to answer. Okay. Any questions, people? Come on. Don't be shy.
Anybody has any questions? Also, those who are watching from Facebook can also ask questions. If you have question, you can raise your hand, your virtual hand, then we can unmute you. Any questions? No questions? Venerable. Nothing, Venerable. It's all lost his internet.
Yeah, come with you. This is to get this. Могу себе глаза кому-то видеть, надо этого вместе с мощью. No, the second soon did it. So
let's wait for maybe 2-3 minutes for Venerable Legtsok if he connects back.
Не буду записывать. Давайте лапа надо. Nhưng mà là cái chấm này thì mình chưa chỉ tu được chẳng cái chỉ tu được thì chưa tu. Understand this data. Cái ở đây nó sẽ chỉ là cái môn này là ở đây bây giờ rất là cái vấn đề của nó mà béo mà chỉ là cái môn này. cái chỉ là cái môn nó 이 요새 들어가서 창문도 있었다.
I think I'm good now. My connection just came back. I don't know why. I turned off the modem and then turned it on again. It seems to reset. So.
But there is no question, Venerable. Would you like to proceed with dedication or something? Or, or would you like to continue? There is no question, it seems. So would you like to continue explaining or should we end here?
No. I think probably people's minds are just full or something. No point.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Pouring more water in the full glass.
Should we end here then?
Yeah, we can end here. Yeah. There's nothing else pressing to say. Let me just check my notes real quick. And then His Holiness said, it made a funny joke today. Kind of a joke. I mean, he was saying, it was related to what it said yesterday, no? That if remember yesterday, I'm not sure, I don't think I finished explaining, but there's one verse at the end of Nagarjuna's text, Entering the Middle Way, where Chandakirti's text. Chandakirti kind of denigrates Vasubandhu, saying, he just accepts a lot of wrong views without any good logic and reason. So, we don't have to pay attention to what he says, basically. So, and then His Holiness gave an example. He said, for example, Vasubandhu, in his text, he says that there's a huge mountain at the center of the universe, and that there are 4 continents around that mountain, and we're on the southern continent. But if there was such a huge mountain at the center of the universe, we should be able to see that. We've sent spaceships to the moon. We have telescopes that can see distant galaxies. If there was a huge mountain at the center of in the universe, and there's 4 big continents around it, we would have found it by now. So today His Holiness said, if Vasubandhu was alive now, we should ask him, where's Mount Meru? The name of the mountain is Mount Meru, right? We should ask Vasubandhu, where is that Mount Meru you're talking about? That was one thing. Yeah, that's the only thing. So yeah, let's dedicate. Thank you so much for joining. And think of whatever positive energy we've created by attending His Holiness teachings this morning or listening later. And trying to reflect, think about a little bit, meditate on what His Holiness has taught. We can rejoice on that. We can also rejoice, in the incredible good fortune we have to have been able to meet and receive teachings from someone like His Holiness. We must have created very good karma, created excellent causes and made strong prayers in the past, just that this has happened to us. So we can also rejoice in that. So first we pray that His Holiness life is long and stable, that we can continue and we can receive more teachings and receive more guidance and inspiration from His Holiness and all of our other teachers. And then may the Buddhist teachings flourish in the world for a long time, just as they have for the last 2,500 years and more. And then may all of our other kind mother sentient beings, may they themselves accumulate the causes to be able to receive and have interest in and be able to practice such wonderful teachings as the Buddha has given, especially about the mind and how to eliminate suffering and create, peace and happiness in our own minds. And for this purpose, may we ourselves quickly become fully enlightened. And then more immediate things, may there's a global pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic, may quickly be eliminated through social distancing and medical practice, vaccination. And may this hardship that the world's experienced in the last year, may it lead to, much progress, much needed progress in terms of economic, racial, gender, equality in all nations in the world, and also to recognition of the real global climate and environment crisis that we face. So may all the countries and nations, leaders and people of the world really unite in order to deal with these crises that we face as a human race together on this planet. The global climate crisis and inequality of wealth, food, access to education, and then among gender, race, and so forth. So may we deal with all of these crises well, and really create a world where it's like a pure land, a perfect place for our human development for all people, where we can strive towards, all people can strive towards developing a full human potential, right? And especially may Tushita Dharma Center flourish in the future. Okay, and then any other prayers you have, may all those prayers also be accomplished in accordance with your wishes. Okay, so let's conclude there. Thank you so much. And I hope
Thank you.
tomorrow.
Thank you so much. See you back. See you tomorrow, everyone. Thank you. Have a good evening, good
See you
day.
tomorrow.
Thank you. See you.